I hope that they first just like take a moment and go, wow, I really do a lot.
Welcome back to the Running Wine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Slinsky, aka the Running Wine Mom. Today's guest is someone who deeply understands the mental load we all carry. Annabel Monaghan is the New York Times bestselling author of some of our favorite escapes, Nora Goes Off Script and Summer Romance, but her newest book, Dolly All the Time, with its beautiful cover, felt different to me. It felt personal and just so relatable at this point in my life. It's a story about the understudy, the woman who holds the world together for everyone else while her own needs sit on a shelf gathering dust. It's funny, of course, it's heartbreakingly real, and it's the book we all need right now. So without further ado, welcome, Annabel.
Wow. Thank you. I love your description of that book. God, I hope that's true.
Yes, it is just, and so just a fun side fact, my mom's name is Dolores, and so my dad calls her Dolly, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun.
When I thought of Dolly, I thought of Dolly for Dorothy. I don't know
Hmm.
why, but I never
Yeah,
thought of Dolores. Oh, I
yeah,
love that. I love that so much.
well, and as we were saying, this is your fourth time on the podcast, so you're officially taking the seat as the person who's come back the most, so thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm a frequent flyer.
I love it.
I want a punch card so I can get a free sandwich after the
Yes,
next.
yeah. You just got to keep coming out with books every summer. So,
No problem.
so as the listeners know, we always start with our wine, and wit of the week. But what we're going to do is a little different this week. I'm going to ask what your wine while writing this book was to start off.
I don't drink wine while I write, but after I write, I like a nice glass of red something, usually a
Yeah.
Pinot Noir.
What is your complaint wine while writing this book?
I sometimes whine that there just isn't, but it's so hard to keep an entire story in your head. And I just wish that I could have like 30 days to sit and do nothing but write a
Mhm.
book. Because then it's like you have all the people in your head, and every time you sit down to write, they're doing the things that you ask them to, rather than you're like, wait, how what? And then you have to go back and read the whole thing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in all of my books I reread the first 100 pages
Mhm.
because I'm
Yeah.
trying to get to page 101. Uh, and so it's the starting and the stopping, which is just part of, being a human being, and, you have to do other things. That was the only whine, because I had a really joyful, fun time writing this book. It was fun to be in Whitfield. It was fun to be in Dolly's head. It was fun to mess with Stuart. I loved it.
Yeah. And so would that be your win of writing this book, or do you have any additional wins for this book?
The win of writing this book, I mean, the first win is that it was fun to write, because really, like, you spend a lot of time writing a book. So if it's miserable to write, that's like kind of gruesome. But the win really is that it's like people like it. I mean, it's making people feel the way that I felt while I was writing it. And I like the thing, whatever, being misunderstood is like the worst thing in the world. The opposite of that is when you're trying to say something and people understand what it is that you're trying to say. So that's been the win for me.
So cool. And can you tell everyone a little bit about what is this book about? We'll get into it, but give your little, synopsis of it.
Sure. So it is a story of Dolly Brick, who is a single mom, and she has a full-time job. She has 3 side hustles. She is everybody's emergency contact in her family. And she has to go back to take care of her dad and her brother after a little fire, to the town where she grew up in coastal Rhode Island. And she finds herself in a fake dating situation with Stuart Whitfield, who the town is called Whitfield, Rhode Island. And they're like the Vanderbilts. They have
Hmm.
a big house on the cliff at the end, and they have this giant, used to be a shipping fortune, now it's a real estate fortune. He is up for CEO to take his family legacy to the next generation, and he needs her for a variety of reasons that I swear make sense to pose as his girlfriend. So it's the story, it's a little bit like Pretty Woman without anything kind of yicky. And it's the story about really about two caretakers. They're both like bear the major responsibility for their families, finally, like learning how to lean on somebody.
Mhm. Yeah. So if this book were a wine, would it be a crispy, briny Vino Verde to match Rhode Island or a complex aged cab with a lot of sediment at the bottom?
I think it would be a white wine. I think we would be outside. We'd be at a picnic. I think there would be cheese and it would be kind of like a Sancerre or a Sauvignon Blanc.
I love that. I'm down for one of those. Right now, I could be there.
It's almost 5 here.
Yes. And so this book, I thought it was so interesting how it opens up. It's with a woman who's literally juggling work, caregiving, and a crisis in the span of hours. And I think every mom listening just felt or feels that, knows of a time that that's happened. I loved the way that this book opened with a woman literally juggling work, caregiving, and crisis in the span of hours. And I just think every mom listening can feel that in our bones. Why did you feel that it was the right time to write this book with that message?
I don't know. I think that I was just ready for it. I think we all are in a world where a lot of people are taking care of their aging parents. They're taking care of their children or their teenagers or even their adult children and still somehow like not getting to that me time kind of
Mhm.
place. And I honestly think a lot of us are doing it lovingly. And I don't have any, I'm not caring for my parents, but like I see my friends like really willingly just going out of their way to manage all of these things.
Mhm.
And they do it not as victims, they do it in love. And it is just like, it's so beautiful to see. And it's also, I see a lot of people thinking, well, I'll just take a break later. There will be time for me later. And it's very difficult once you get into the habit of being a caretaker to ask for help or to really to think that someone else could do it in, as well as you could or instead of you. So those are just things I've been thinking about for a really long time. And I wanted to write about another single mom. And when I brought her home, I just sort of saw her as that person in the family that everybody leaned on. Also, I wanted to write a book in Rhode Island because I've been to Rhode Island's amazing, by the way. And I've been there on book tour a bunch. And I visited Newport before I
So
started
pretty.
writing this book. And I went on all those mansion tours
Mhm.
and I like basically the stories that they tell you on those tours are the same story. It's like this generation brought about great wealth. And these people had this lifestyle, and then it all went to hell in this generation. And now they all like live in condos in Florida or something. And it's like I just kept thinking about like what does that feel like for the person who was that generation, who let
Mhm.
it slip through their cracks? So I kind of started thinking about Stewart as a caretaker before I started thinking about Dolly as a caretaker.
So
And
interesting,
it
yeah.
was fun to write a couple that they both have the same issue. It's not like one of them's going to solve the other one's issue. They have
Right.
the exact same problem.
Mhm.
So that's where that came from.
And you dedicated this book to the caretakers. And, Dolly kind of spent her life being her mother's understudy before she even had left. When you were writing her, did you see her hyper responsibility as a superpower or as a cage she kind of built for herself?
Oh, gosh, I think this is like they say, both things can be true. I do think it's a superpower. I have a friend who always talks about the curse of capability. If you're the
Mhm.
person in your family that's able to host Thanksgiving dinner, you're always going to host Thanksgiving dinner. That is the cage that you built or that someone built for you. So I kind of think it's both. And I think that there's some value to being like, I could do this, but do I have to do this? Do I let everything fall on me? And the answer is no, it shouldn't. Everything shouldn't fall on one person, but it does.
I
It
know.
does. Family. There's always that one person who's like the one everybody turns to and is like, I don't know, what should we do?
Which is going to lead me kind of to the next question. Dolly, like so many of us, are just holding everything together. Her dad, her brother, her son, the house, and barely pauses to ask like what she wants. Do you think women recognize themselves in her, or do you think they avoid recognizing themselves in her?
I think that when they read her experience, I think a lot of people will say, yeah, yeah, no,
Hmm.
I know that. I know
Yeah.
that. And there's moments in the book that are really not that flattering to Dolly, where she's so resentful of her sister who doesn't help that when her sister asks what she can bring for Thanksgiving, she says, "Nothing, it's fine." Just because she wants to prove herself right. See, she
Yeah.
didn't do anything. Like, if she walked in with a pie, then she wouldn't be able to hate her so much.
Yeah.
It's every act of love is so beautiful. Everything can be so beautiful until you overdo it.
Yeah. And it's so funny. That's what I was going to say. There's like an undercurrent of in the book, if I don't do it, no one will. Just like Thanksgiving, like, I'm just going to do it. I don't need anyone to
It's
help.
fine. I'll do it.
Yeah.
I got
Like, but where do you think this belief really comes from? And why, as mothers, is it so hard to just let that go? Like, is it our ego? Like we were kind of saying, like, I'll just do it. Or why do you think we're like this?
I don't know. I mean, I think you start out doing everything and then you end up with a way you like things done. And so then it's hard to ask for help because if somebody else takes over, it's not going to be done the way that you'd like to. I also think that a lot of women don't know how much they do, how much they
Yeah.
take on in a family. There are tasks, like if you could list all the tasks that you do all day, it would still only be like 70% of actually what you do because you're thinking, what's the next thing? What are we, there's so much mental load that you carry, and it's hard to ask somebody else to take your mental load.
Yeah.
I think Dolly experiences that, like with her dad and with her brother, what's going to happen to them. She's the
Yeah.
only one who's really engaged with that.
Yeah, and there was in there it was the pants mantra. Throughout the book, Dolly's shorthand for caring for Christopher is the one word command pants. We all have a bare minimum thing that we track for our families. What is the pants moment in your own life?
That's a great question because, I don't have kids at home anymore. So
Yeah.
I'm now in this like place where my life is about my work and hanging out with my husband. It might have been helmets.
Mhm.
Like, as long as everybody was wearing a helmet, I felt like that was going to be okay. They were all riding around. And food. When I had
Mm.
kids, like, food was a really big thing. That was my love language. Like, if everybody had had a pound of bacon every day, I was like, "Everybody's gonna be okay."
Mm.
I made a
So
lot of bacon, like a
I
crazy
know.
amount.
I know. I'm trying to think of like what mine is right now. I don't even know. There's just so many of them. My kids are they're still so young, so I feel like there's there is just far too many to pick one, but I would probably say food might be one of them
Well,
as
and it
well.
changes over time.
Yeah.
There's a time when it's just like you don't want anybody to, like, have a head injury, and
Right,
then
right.
later you're, like, worried about porn on the internet.
Yeah.
It's just like it just, like, changes and morphs into, like, more things that could happen.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Um Yeah. So this book, it's not your typical romance. It's layered with real life, with money, stress, caregiving, burnout. Why was it important, that the love didn't magically fix everything like it does in so many?
Because I think that's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
It really is. It's my favorite thing when you're reading a love story and you're really invested in these people and you really want it to work out, and there's a moment where it doesn't work out, but you still think she's gonna be okay.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
literally my very favorite thing because in real life, nobody meets a guy and then has all of their problems solved. Like,
Mhm.
that is not a thing that
No.
ever happens. And it's not a story that we should be selling to young women. Like, "Oh, just wait. Someday you'll meet a guy and then
Someday your prince will come.
credit cards will be paid off and you'll be happy and you'll feel good about your body." I mean, like, that's not a thing. So I love that. I love when the love story is a little bit like a love story between the woman and herself. And she's changing. And then we get the happy ending.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I love
I still think of Nora Goes Off Script a lot, and I feel like Nora was that way as well. I just like love that about the characters. I feel like it's so important. So to go to the man, when Stuart enters the picture, it's almost like kind of two completely different worlds collide.
for
What
sure.
did you want readers to feel in that contrast? Did you want them to feel fantasy or reality, or how did you kind of want them to feel when?
I love the question. I love the way you phrase that because I haven't really thought of that before. I did want them to feel fantasy and reality at the same time. And when I was in Newport and I was researching this trip, I'd come back from all the mansions and then I was in town in Newport, just the most gorgeous town you can
So
imagine.
beautiful.
And down every street, there were like houses where people lived with
Mhm.
clotheslines and music coming from them. And it was just like there was so much life and beautiful things happening there. And I thought it would be fun to get these people together. Um, and as exhausted as those people in those mansions must have been, like trying to make things work, they weren't as exhausted as the other people
Right.
in the warehouse trying to make things work. I just thought that's always so fun when you can bring that stuff together.
Yeah, that really is. And it is so interesting when you go to these big beautiful places and it's like you see the like that. I'm thinking as you're saying that in Newport, I'm reminiscing about our trip where it's like, yeah, there's just like normal people that are also living here too. It's not just, in the mega mansions. So one of the scenes in the limo where they practice the oxytocin inducing hand holding, it's pretty, electric. And I just wanted to know how you approached writing intimacy that feels like disarming rather than just steamy romance, steamy intimacy.
So you've read my books because I've been here so many times.
Yeah.
I'm
I
not,
know. When I wrote it, I was like, I know how you feel about this, but I gotta ask.
yeah, and I love a steamy book. Love
Yeah.
it. I'm just not like, it's just not the way I write.
Mhm.
And I could try, like, if you gave me $1,000,000 and you were like, "Write something steamy," it would be silly. I would get silly while I was writing it. I do feel like the initial touching moments, I really love writing those moments. And I do, which is a really fun thing about fake dating, because there's always an excuse for two people who aren't admitting that they're attracted to each other
Yes.
to have some kind of a touch. But I will say that I'm writing another book right now, and my editor has given me very few comments, but what she did say, which I think is hysterical, she said, "You're getting better at sex."
Yay.
I was like, this is feedback I've never gotten in my entire life. So from anybody,
Uh, yeah,
it's
because
that time.
I think it was our first interview that we talked about, and you just said I remember you saying you just did not, it was just not what you want, what you like to write about. And so this is great
Yeah, no,
progress.
I'm loosening up a little bit. Maybe I
Yay.
something. But I do, and I love writing the moment before the kiss. I think that is like sometimes that's the electric thing. Like the kiss is the kiss, but the yearn, I'd love that.
Me too. I think it's sometimes more important than the like, where it leads to the whole lead up, which is pretty fun. So to go on the opposite of steamy, we're going to talk about the financial stress in this book. It is so real. Why was it important for you to show this side of life so honestly?
Well, first of all, I love writing about money.
Hmm.
Love talking about money. I think it's such an interesting part of our life. And the decisions that we make around money and the guilt and the shame that we have around having it or not having it, or if you get it, you can't spend it, all of that. I love the topic. I also really love in a romance where there are like a lot of, not even in a romance, in any story, a story strengthens with how many conflicts and problems there are.
Hmm.
A woman who has a child, a single woman who has a child, has a lot of conflicts and problems and a lot of responsibilities.
Hmm.
If she's broke, like the stakes just naturally raise.
Yeah.
It's just like there's so much more to it than, oh, he's handsome. I hope he kisses me. She has so much more at stake with her family kind of struggling behind her. And then on the other hand, like Stuart's a cajillionaire. So it was very fun to bring her to his house for dinner and to have her accidentally walk in through the service entrance and just for her to experience all of that, that casual way that very wealthy people are with their money.
Yeah.
It was
And
fun.
there's a powerful line in the book, "Love is fickle, debt sticks around." How much of Dolly's identity do you think is tied to the financial and emotional debts of her parents?
A lot. A lot. So her father, I mean, this is very early in the story. The backstory was that her father tried to open a second. He owns the local fish shop. He was going to open a second fish shop to impress his wife, who was not impressed with his financial success, and that was a failure. And her mother left because he was never going to amount to anything. And so I think that basically her origin story is about being broke, trying to find a way not to be broke and trying to like always be able to be totally independent and take care of herself and make up for her mother's absence. She had a lot to do.
Yeah. And so, the setting in Rhode Island, it feels almost like it's a whole other character in the book, the coastal town, the fish house, the routines. What does home mean in this book? And is it a place or is it a responsibility?
I think that her home, because it had been in her family for a while, much like his, her home was the place where her brother, who's disabled, feels the most comfortable. Like that home is what connects him to the memory of his mother, who he hasn't seen since she left. And so I don't think that Dolly would admit to herself that she has such an emotional attachment to her home, but he does.
Yeah.
And she wants that for him. Yeah, home can be very, very emotional.
And then the other thing, you described the zen of a fish house, the fans and the salt, sweet smell. But if you had to spend a summer working at the fish house, would you be behind the counter or would you be in the back gutting the cod?
Samantha, that's a great question. So my uncle was a fishmonger
Okay.
and he had a fish store in Los Angeles. I remember, and my grandfather, his father was a butcher, and the fish store and the butcher shop were right like across the hall from each other. And I remember going to visit them and being like, "Granddaddy," and a big hug. And he's got blood all over his white apron. And my uncle, "Hey, Uncle Bobby," and he's got like fish guts all over him. So it's like kind of doesn't freak me out.
So
But I
you'd be
think that
in the
maybe
back.
I'd like to be behind the counter with the fresh air. That does nicer, yeah.
What was your favorite part of the book to write?
Well, there's a scene where Dolly kinda tells Stuart off, and that was so satisfying to write. Just felt like I had when I'm writing a book, I, like, get very, like, deep into the skin of the
Mhm.
people I'm writing through. I was so pissed by this point. Like, honestly, like, I would walk around, like, walking my dog, like, muttering under my breath. I was so pissed, and I just let him have it. Dolly let him have it, and it felt really satisfying. Also, any scene that her friend, Naomi was in was really fun to write because her friend Naomi is the kind of person who will just say anything, and that felt very freeing. It's not like, "Oh, what should this person say?" Like, she's a wild card, and
We
those
all
scenes
need that kind of friend, right?
we do, especially, if you're, like, the person who's always trying to do the right thing.
Right. Exactly. All right. So I am so excited for everyone to read the book. And for the moms who are listening that feel like they're carrying everything, what do you hope that they take from Dolly's story?
I hope that they first just, like, take a moment and go, "Wow, I really do a lot."
Yeah.
Like, I really am, whether they're at home or whether they're at work or whether they're whatever it is, you are constantly managing your family from your conscious mind, your subconscious mind. Like, just to sit with it and be like, "Wow, that's not a joke, what it is that I have taken on." I mean, motherhood is a lot to take on. And then, you know, to the extent it's appropriate, I'm not here to boss anybody around. So many things we can do can be done by our partner, can be done by our children. I mean, it's
Hmm.
believable how little, and I'm just going to speak for my generation, how little we ask of our children.
Yeah.
It's very much in reaction to the way our parents like kind of treated us like soldiers. But like your kids can like cook.
Yeah.
They can. We should ask them to.
Yeah, I agree. I try to give my kids responsible because it's so much on us. I'm like, I can't do all of this. I need you guys to do, even if it's small things that they can it is surprising how much of like a burden it can take off by having them just do smaller things, and no matter
And,
what they're.
also it makes them feel good.
Mhm, it does. It really does. I know my daughter gets so proud every time she does something. I the other day, this is a funny story before we wrap it up. They were sleeping at my parents last weekend for our anniversary. I was taking my son to the gym. My husband was home, but my daughter didn't want to go. So I was like, listen, I would like you to pack your stuff for Mimi and Pops's. And I drew all of the things like, shirt times one, pants I drew times, this. And so I said, "You could go give this to daddy and you can do it and he'll make sure you do it properly." And I came home, he's like, "She did it all." Like she knew exactly what she wanted. She felt such pride in packing everything. She told everyone she packed everything. And I just thought, wow, I was like nervous that she was not going to be able to do it. And she did it with grace, you know?
I think you should ask your parents. I bet the minute she got there, she was like, "You wanna see what I packed in my suitcase?"
I know
Like,
I have to.
right? Like, she must have felt and, not to bring it back to my book, but there's a thing in, like, a very small thread in that book about how she feels badly that she never asks her anything of her disabled brother. They just make him comfortable.
Yeah,
And then towards the end of the story, like, he takes on some more because she lets him or he has to, and he feels better. Like,
right.
he's
Yeah,
not helping her out that much, but he's like, "Oh, look at me engaged in the world."
yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I think our kids can do stuff.
All right. Well, I think that is a great place to end it. I think every woman listening is going to go out and they're going to buy Dolly all the time and then probably go and take a nap while someone else handles the pants for once. So
Oh my
that is
goodness.
our goal.
Yes. Everybody keep your pants on. Read the book.
Yes. As always, thank you so much for spending time with us today on The Running Wine Mom. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. You can follow me on Instagram at The Running Wine Mom _ and Annabelle. Tell the listeners where they can find you, where they can find your book, and all that good stuff.
So you can find me. My website is annabelmonaghan.com. I'm on Instagram all the time at Annabel Monaghan, also Facebook Annabel Monaghan. And I'm going to be going on tour all over the country. So all of those events are on my website, annabelmonaghan.com. And my
Perfect.
books everywhere books are sold. Is that what we say?
Yeah, on May 26th, right?
May
That's when.
26th.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. All
Cannot
right, I
wait.
will. Yes, I will link all of that. Thank you, Annabelle, for coming on again. I will definitely see you next year for this next book.
I can't wait. Thank you for having me back. I'm
Yeah.
so proud to be your frequent flyer.
Thank you. I love having you. So, thank you everyone for joining us today. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, keep reading, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers, and I'll be back next Tuesday.